Hey guys, and welcome to Quality Shot. I'm super excited to be joined by Gill, the presenter of Monday Match Analysis, and of course, co-host and presenter of a Tennis podcast with Joel Drucker and Amy Lundy. Let's move on then to the grass, and just for that, I'm going to change the background to the grass.
Love it.
Um, Wimbledon here in the UK, and you talked about obviously finals and people having to, have those growing pains. And obviously, Anthony Murray's had those growing pains. He had a lot of growing pains against Djokovic and Federer, especially before winning a Grand Slam. So let's start off with him, actually, because, I mean, realistically, I don't think he's going to have a chance of winning Wimbledon. But how do you think, in terms of his goals at Wimbledon, from a British perspective, I'm interested to know um, from you guys in the US as well, how do you perceive it? Do you perceive it as, look, he's just there for a good time, not necessarily a long time in Grand Slams, or is it a case of maybe he can actually get to the second week and that's kind of the goal?
Huh. I don't think he's there yet. It doesn't seem to me like he's there yet. It's great to see him competing, and he still comes up with some magic from time to time. But in his loss to Matteo Berretini today, for example, it seems to be that obviously if he's close to his best, it's still a tough match, but it's an opponent he can push a lot harder, especially with the way he returns serve. He just seems to not have the he
The
doesn't have
weaponry.
that it's weaponry, but I almost feel like the weaponry has always been a little bit less
Yeah.
than it's not the weaponry is not what carried him through, but the movement and the fitness, the way he crafts his points and the toughness that he has kind of carried him through. And the one thing that I'm a little bit surprised at with this new iteration of Murray is he seems to be playing the same way without the same body. And I wonder if he can. I would like to see him make a push to do some different things with his game to try to compensate for the fact that he doesn't have the same explosiveness. If he doesn't do it, that's fine, and maybe he gets some patches of good health and he can still find some success. But I'm still waiting for kind of the answer for Andy Murray. I think that what he did, let's see, was it the tail end of 2019 when he won the title in Antwerp? Like, that's pretty impressive. He has had some success on his comeback. It's just he continues to have those speed bumps. Wimbledon, I think if he can win two main draw matches, that'll be good for him. I think that would be a good result.
Yeah, it's interesting you said about obviously he's playing almost the same style of play in what is now kind of a worn and torn body, really, and one that can't move as well. And I guess that's what really sets those top three aside at the moment, is because they managed to adapt, and we touched upon it. And it's interesting because, again, they don't have the same style of play, but if I was to compare Murray to one of those three, it would be Djokovic, right? In terms of
Mm-hmm.
they were the grinder, they would, very good backhands, very solid. I know you guys like to call it the shield, and I feel like Murray kind of has a bit of a shield of a backhand as well. And the forehand was more functional, like Djokovic's used to be. Now Djokovic has adapted that into a weapon, and Murray doesn't quite have that. His serve is bigger than Djokovic's, which is why he was so good on the grass, and he has that serve volley game as well on the drop shot. But I think the movement isn't there, so he needs to be more proactive on points. So it's interesting to see whether he can do that or whether he's just played that way for so long. And it seems, and I know this might sound harsh, but it seems like he's just happy to play. If that makes sense. Like he wants to compete, but he's happy to play and compete in the style of play he has. But it might be that he's too stubborn to say, I'm going to change kind of late on in my career now to push on because I don't know if I can do it anyway, kind of thing. Whereas these guys obviously haven't been through a hip operation, etc. So maybe it's a different equation.
I don't think you're wrong. I think he is happy to compete. I'm glad to see that though. Like I think that's definitely a good thing because uh, if you have kind of followed things that he has said ever since the injury, when he was on top of the world in 2016, he was not happy to compete and he was winning, but it was painful in victory, just because it wasn't fun to play with the pain. In hindsight, really he should have been doing what Nadal and Federer are doing, which is if my body is telling me that it needs a rest, or it needs help, or it's not right, I'm not going to play on it. I'm not going to push through. And you just wonder how much damage he did just pushing through, playing through the pain. And you can't go back. Hindsight's 2020. But unfortunately, it's good to see that Andy is on the court enjoying himself, playing pain free. But I don't think that your assessment is inaccurate. That maybe without that almost disdain for losing, it's going to be hard for him to reach the next level and to have those same adaptations, perhaps.
Yeah, maybe. But look, I mean, if he was to end his career now, it's still been a pretty damn good career. So I don't think he'd be too agreed. I mean, he's won two. The one thing he can say is that he's won 2 Olympic golds, which no one else has done in this current generation. So he can take that with him at least. And talking of the Olympics, obviously Nadal's not going to be at Wimbledon or the Olympics, citing kind of wear and tear a little bit and needing rest. Saying that obviously the French Open had moved it back a week as well, so it meant that there's only 2 weeks gap rather than the 3 weeks that you probably would have had. And also, just I think he was saying, look, I need to listen to my body and I need the rest, etc. As a fan of Wimbledon and as a fan of Rafa, obviously we haven't really seen him perform too well on the grass for quite a long time. Where I've been in a position where we've gone into Wimbledon, and I've thought, hold on, he's probably in the top 2 favourites. For me personally, it's always kind of been Federer, Djokovic, and then Murray, obviously. So he wasn't even in the top 3, I think, in a few years. But now, do you think it's a case of, well, this is probably his weakest surface and he's at the back end of his career and he's thinking, well, yeah, my body's also probably not feeling great and really this is my weakest surface and I've got the least chance of winning here. So is it really worth me doing it? Or do you think it is mainly just to do with the physical aspect?
I think it's probably a combination, but I do think it's physical when it comes to Wimbledon because I think we've kind of seen, I think the reason why Wimbledon has been difficult for him, and I want to throw the caveat in there that I think he's played really good tennis the last 3 years at Wimbledon. I mean, he didn't play a great match against Federer in the semi, but then he almost won. If he beat Djokovic in the 2018 semifinal, he probably would have beaten Kevin Anderson and won the title. So he was close there. But I think throughout his career, the hardest thing about Wimbledon, especially since I guess 2011 was the last time he made the final. Is that correct? I think the thing with that is he needs to try to recover from the clay season, and it's just a tough spot on the calendar for him more than anything. I think that might be a bigger factor than even the fact that maybe it's his least favorite surface. I don't know. Like I think Australia might be. I think he moves pretty well on the grass. He has certain things like his slice serve, which is effective on the grass. He does do some good things there. It took him longer to win the U.S. Open than it took him to win Wimbledon. So I think more than anything, it's the calendar spot that's been difficult for Nadal. So I think it's mostly physical, trying to recover from clay season. But I think the Olympics, you throw in some other factors there. The fact that the athletes might have to be quarantined and he might not have the practice schedule that is ideal for him. And there might be a little bit of challenges when it comes to facilities, and it might not be comfortable for him. And I think that's a big factor with the Olympics is, do I really want to do that right now when I'm trying to recover and I'm trying to get ready for the US Open? I'd rather make sure that I'm getting my body right and I'm getting ready to push for the Open, which has been my second most successful slam after the French Open. I'd rather be in Mallorca really training right.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the reason why I am a Rafa fan is actually because of him coming onto the scene at Wimbledon and challenging Roger, who used to just win it here every single year for a few years. And really, I love Roger Federer now, but as a kid, I used to hate him. I'm just gonna be honest, because he just used to beat Andy Roddick all the time. As an American, you probably were thinking, "Oh man, what's going on?" And Roddick every year used to go on the comms and say, you know what? He's just too good, man. You owe me a beer. And I was thinking, come on, Roddick, do something. And he's getting beaten straight. He's such a nice guy, though. I love Andy Roddick, but it's almost like once Federer had beaten him once, mentally, it was just in his head that I'm just going to get destroyed. And he just could never quite get over it, could he? But I remember, obviously, that epic final against Federer, though, in the end, a few years later, and he just couldn't get on the line. Yeah, on 09. Yeah. And that would have been heart-wrenching for him. But yeah, obviously Nadal came on and lost his straights, then lost in 4, and then obviously the amazing 2008 final, which a lot of people thought was is one of the best finals, if not the best final ever. And yeah, I mean, it's just a shame because that brings back childhood memories. I think I've got a bit of nostalgia, but I agree with you. It's probably the spot on the calendar as he gets older, and he knows he's going to make at least the semis at the French Open, most likely. So if that's the case, and especially years where he's won it, and then they've made the gap shorter now as well, and even in recent years, now they made it even more short because of COVID, and they moved it back one week. So he's probably thinking, look, I'm gonna get destroyed on the grass in terms of physically, and if he doesn't feel right, then that's fair enough. But it's a shame. But what that does mean is the next gen have got a chance here. So we're going to talk about this. I mean, Djokovic says the next gen is himself and Nadal and Federer. But let's talk about it from our point of view. Where I think the next gen is probably Tsitsipas, Medvedev, Zverev, Rublev as well. And I know you touched upon it on your mailbag. Actually, it was really interesting hearing some of your points on it. But Tsitsipas for me is someone who obviously his game has become really kind of polished on clay, but for grass, I feel like he's got some of the ingredients to do well on grass. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like the serve and volley is something that he's very comfortable with the net from what I've seen. He's obviously got a forehand to dictate as well, which is very useful. I think the biggest issue for me is his ball toss. His ball toss doesn't seem to be very good for serve and volley. It seems to be almost, as a coach, you say, 10 to 2, make sure you hit through it so your momentum's going forward. He almost at times, I see his ball toss and he's going towards him. And it's comfortable for him because he's used to it, but it's something maybe to tweak so he's more used to serve and volley. And also the other thing was his backhand slice, which was almost non-existent, and that didn't help him against Djokovic in that third, fourth, fifth set where he couldn't mix it up. What are your thoughts on Tsitsipas and how well he can do on the grass?
Yeah, I think he's much more comfortable hitting a serve and then hitting an approach shot forehand on the next ball. Much more comfortable with that than serve volleying. I actually don't think we'd see it much from him. There's a whole separate footwork to it, and it's just almost a different animal. And I just haven't seen him do it much. I don't think, but with Tsitsipas, the thing about the clay is the clay hides his biggest weakness, which is his return of serve. And he doesn't have a horrific return, but if you go up, down the list of players in the top 10, it's on the very bottom in terms of how well he gets returns in play and what kind of depth he can get. And when the ball is coming extra fast on the grass, it's not going to have the same effect that the clay has, which hides the weakness. It's going to bring out that weakness. So that's my main concern for Tsitsipas on the clay. I think he's going to hold serve a lot. He's going to be a great offensive player, but I don't know how easily he's going to break. His return numbers, his break percentage goes up about 10% on clay, roughly. And he goes from being, in like the 40-ish range at breaking serve, and he goes into the top 10 on clay. So it's a big thing for him, and that's why I think clay is his best surface. The other concern that I have for Stefanos is that he doesn't defend his backhand too well, and you were referring to it with the backhand slice. He's got a good drive backhand when he's in position and all that, but he doesn't defend that corner quite as well as like Roger does, for example. So I think that he's still dangerous. I think he's an elite player. He's a top 7 contender, maybe a top 5 contender. But to me, and I understand there's Federer-like things. He hits his forehand well. He volleys really well. He's comfortable moving forward. And that's kind of like a light bulb that it's okay. He's going to be great on grass. I think that there's going to be some issues for him on the surface. So I think that if he had the same draw that he had at Roland Garros, I would instead favor Medvedev over him in the quarterfinals instead of Tsitsipas.
I mean, he could have even gone out to John Isner in the round before, wasn't it? Wasn't the round before, right, or the round before that? I think it was against John Isner, who obviously is a huge serving American, and he was playing really well on the clay, but on the grass, I mean, his serve is huge. So he dropped a set against Isner on the clay, but could lose to him on the grass. You've got him, people like Kevin Anderson, Cilic obviously as well, Raonic, those guys will come in, and if you're not a good returner of the serves, you're saying, which I agree, because at the ATP Tour World Finals, I think it was last year, I remember watching him thinking your return needs to improve. Like, it's just so poor. Like, he wasn't making many returns, shanking a lot of them. And I was just thinking, well, you got to improve on that. And in the French Open at the start, I think he was, but as the opponents got tougher and tougher, and the serving got not necessarily bigger but more accurate and pinpoint, he struggled, and that's what we saw in the final actually against Djokovic, where I reckon the last three sets were one of the biggest factors of return of serve. His return of serve just declined so much compared to Novak's, who went the opposite way and managed to make more returns. So I agree 100%. On Medvedev, then, because you mentioned him, he seems like he again could have the game potentially on grass. I feel like it's movement. I know you discuss it a lot on your videos. That movement on grass is obviously, it's a very unique thing that you need to have to move on the clay. And I know, like Karatsev, for example, using your example, looked like a deer in headlights moving on the grass, and he's someone who's obviously performed really well so far this year. But for Daniil Medvedev, long levers, obviously hits very low over the net, so he likes to slice, mix it up. Quite a, I would say, unique game compared to most people. Um, could he have success at Wimbledon? Big server as well. Could you see him doing well on the grass?
Yeah, I think if he just gets his feet under him, because he obviously needs his movement. He has great court coverage when he's comfortable, and we've seen that be an issue on the clay at times. It's never an issue on a hard court. So now the question is he going to be able to move corner to corner on grass with a little bit less traction there? But other than that, I think if I can check off that box, then I love him on grass, and I probably make him the second favorite after Djokovic if he can move on the surface, because he does have that big weapon of a serve. He does put returns in play. He absorbs pace well. He redirects the ball, and he hits with great depth and location. And the court will do the work for you. Daniil Medvedev, although I think some people watch him and he's 6'6" and they think he hits big, he really doesn't. He doesn't have that much power. But he does put the ball in good spots. He does redirect the ball. He does hit with great depth. And on grass, the court will reward you. If you hit deep, if you hit close to the line, if you redirect the pace, the court will reward you. You do not need power. So with that combined with his flat hitting and the way his backhand can rip through and slide through the court, I think it makes him very, very dangerous on the surface. But it's going to be interesting because a lot of these guys we just haven't seen much on grass. Felix looks rejuvenated right now on the surface with his ability to take the ball early and hit big forehands close to the lines. It's going to be really fun to watch these young guys, but it's a bit of a wild card. I'm still optimistic about Medvedev at Wimbledon, even though he lost early to the dangerous Jan-Lennard Struff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Struff is he definitely had many an upset in the French Open, and he beating Rublev early doors there as well, which is a huge upset. But yeah, I mean, Felix looks really good. Obviously, beat Roger Federer in 3 sets. So Roger, obviously, and you know what, that takes me nicely on to Roger. I mean, realistically, being the big three expert that you are, Gill, how far do you see him going at Wimbledon? He looks like he's in this in-between phase where it can either go, you know what, I'm not going to be able to last, my body's just not going to hold up, or he could just go on this fairy tale run where maybe, I'm not saying he'll win it, but you could get somewhere near. Where are you leaning towards at the moment after that performance in Harlan? Obviously, you have a bit of time to rest now. What do you think in terms of his prospects?
Yeah, 100%. I don't think the FAA loss is really this big alarm bell for me. I just think Felix played great, and Federer got very negative very quickly, and I don't think it'll happen again. I don't think he thinks it'll happen again. If you read kind of what he said after the match, doubt Federer at your own risk is kind of my mindset here. Again, and you're right, he's not going to go all the way. I don't think he has the fitness to do it. I don't think he has the confidence to do it. But if he gets rolling, I think he can make a quarterfinal. And I think it's going to take a strong effort to beat him. He needs to serve better, much better than he has, really all season long. But, the technique is still there. He's still going to be a great server. I don't think his serve is going to abandon him completely. I just think there's some physical things, some mental, some mindset things. And it's going to be somewhat about the draw, but he still has a great seed. And I think that helps him because, he gets to, when you play a slam, you really get to be rounded into form. It just has that way about it. To play best of 5 set matches, to play a lot of, usually players ranked outside the top 50 for the first 2 rounds. And then in round 3, maybe you get your first test. To have days off in between your matches, it just really lends itself to picking up some momentum and some rhythm and some confidence. So the way we saw Federer play at Roland Garros, beating especially Marin Cilic, it was an impressive performance. And to get through Koepfer, even though he was battling, fatigue to a high extent there, he showed me enough there that I have to think that he's not going to be a complete non-factor at Wimbledon. And I'm thinking, depending on the draw, I could see him getting to a quarterfinal.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's get to the quarters and see what he can do, and maybe, who knows, if he's lucky, Djokovic, Medvedev, Rublev, Zverev, and Thiem and Tsitsipas all knocked out, and then maybe maybe who knows, maybe who knows. I guess on a couple of others then, just to wrap up on the kind of prospects for the title, I guess Zverev is another one who obviously did really well at the French, getting to the semis, ultimately losing in 5 to Tsitsipas. He has made a Grand Slam final before, obviously getting the yips on the serve against Thiem in that US Open, but managed to take it to 5 there again. So he's had a bit of a taste. On the grass, though, I know your opinion is that he's probably not super suited to the grass in terms of his comfort level moving on it, and also isn't as proactive as he should be on his ground strokes. But in terms of, I was thinking that in terms of his actual base of his game and the attributes he has, surely he should be able to do quite well, because he seems to have the weaponry to do it. Like, he can hit big off both sides. He's got big serve. He's pretty good at the net as well. Is it just more a question of how does he approach the tournament? And he needs to have a specifically kind of more aggressive approach in matches on the grass to succeed.
Yeah, totally. He just struggles to get himself to a place where he is taking short balls and attacking them and moving forward. And I don't know why that is. And sometimes we'll see it in spells. I think, the first 2 sets against Dominic Thiem at the US Open in the final is a high-profile example of Zverev using his aggressive mid-court transition game really, really effectively. That's what you need on grass. You're not going to win on defense. And we've just seen him over and over again at Wimbledon lose matches where he's just not taking it to his opponent to the extent that he should. And we've seen it on clay too. I would agree with the idea that he does have the tools, he does have the base, and really, if he serves well, he's going to go far no matter what, no matter how aggressive he is. But then at the very end of the tournament, he's going to need to do more. He's going to need to go after his shots, hit down the line more often, for example. It's not just about mentality, but it's about, how much are you willing to redirect and change direction on the forehand side, where sometimes he just goes cross court every time? Are you going to take your backhand and really kind of hit it to your potential offensively? So these things are all going to be interesting to see. I don't know how he likes the fact that the ball doesn't bounce up for him as much. I think sometimes that bothers him, especially on the forehand side. But yeah, he does have the tools. And then he has this monkey on his back, and let's see if he can shake it. But the fact that he is yet to pick up a win at a slam against a top 10 opponent, I think that's something that there's a lot of buzz about that now whenever he has an opportunity to do it. And rightly so, because at the end of the day, he's been extremely consistent, but he has yet to actually beat the kind of player that you need to beat in order to actually win this thing. And for a player as talented as Zverev, that should not be the case. At this point, he should have a big win at a major, and he hasn't really been able to pick up that big win.
Yeah, I agree. That's a damning stat for sure, but I'm sure he'll put it right at some point, hopefully, because I think that will be a good as you said, it'll be a monkey off his back, but also a little mental victory, and I'm sure he'll take a lot from that, knowing Alexander Zverev. Nice to see his older brother on the comms for Eurosport as well. He looked so awkward doing the analysis between when Zverev was playing Tsitsipas. You could see he was like whispering, trying to make sure that no one could hear him, and he was really good actually, Misha Zverev. But you could see he was talking about Alexander, and you could just see they were asking questions, and he was trying to answer them in a really like very professional manner. But as an older brother, he probably was thinking, you just need to be doing X, Y, and Z, probably saying as loudly as he can. But he obviously wasn't going to because you're not allowed to coach, obviously, which is quite funny. But Andrey
Is he good on
Rublev,
there? So I don't get to watch him. I'm
okay.
Just, so you do think is Misha good on Eurosport?
Yeah, he is. He's really good actually. I actually think he knows his stuff. You can tell, and I think he gives good insight analysis into the players. So he's courtside, and they go to him and they ask him about kind of what the game plan is, how each player is looking physically, mentally, how he thinks the runner plays. Because sometimes actually watching on the TV, you think, oh, you know what's going on, and then actually they go to him and he might say, oh, hold on, he's actually breathing really heavily. He might be in front, but he looks like he's about to decline. And next thing you know, that does happen. Because he's there and you can see them in the flesh. So I think it does make a difference as he's so close to them. And obviously he has good insight and knowledge being in Alexander Zverev's team as well. And he seems to know his stuff, so he's good. But on the opposite side, like you said about Zverev not being super aggressive, but Rublev is completely the opposite. He's ultra aggressive. And I remember watching him in the ATP Tour World Finals and obviously in some of the matches this year as well. And he just tries to hit the ball as hard as he can on a forehand side, especially run around the backhand, crunch that forehand out to the backhand side. And I mean, look, it works a lot. I mean, obviously he got a victory against Nadal on the clay, which he would be really happy with. And at times when he's hot, he's really hot and it comes off and he tries to go big and a lot of points. On the grass, I mean, surely this is something which, if he makes it click, he can make a really good run on here.
Yeah, I'm high on him. And then again, some people will say, well, he can't volley. And that's true. Worst volleys in the top 10. There's no doubt about it. But I don't think you need that. It's nice to have. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I think on grass, when you can hit a good approach shot and move forward, a lot of players go on a slice defense. The ball is bouncing low. It's a lot harder to make a pass than it is on clay, where the ball bounces a little bit higher, a little bit slower. You can get there. You have better traction. So I think it's great to have net play on grass, but I think Rublev can be successful without it, just with how well he hits to small targets and how consistently he can do that and sustain aggression. It just doesn't really concern me too much. And I love that both on the serve, he very rarely relinquishes the offense off of his first serve, and he's got a good flat serve and a good slice serve. Doesn't hit his kick serve well, which really hurts him on clay, but shouldn't hurt him on grass. We saw Andy Murray and we see Novak Djokovic just hitting slice serves as second serves on the surfaces that don't bounce as high, and it's effective. So hopefully Rublev can do that for his sake. But then I also love on the return. He's got very compact strokes, and he plays aggressively off the return, which a lot of players on the men's side either can't do or don't do. And I'm looking forward to see how he takes those second serve returns early and attacks them, which I think will be really good on grass. I think we're going to see a bit of a resurgence because it was kind of a disappointing clay court season after Monte Carlo for Andrey Rublev. And I think, people forget about him a little bit. And I think he's going to re-announce himself potentially at Wimbledon. And it's a good chance for him to try to make his first major semifinal.
Yeah, I'd like to see him do well, actually. I think he is really talented, and I don't think, obviously, that run in Roland Garros, which was non-existent, probably didn't do justice to his clay court swing. So after a pretty impressive one as well. I guess kind of last of that chasing pack, Dominic Thiem, obviously a huge kind of upset at the French Open, and mentally doesn't seem to quite. I know your opinion is that he needs to get that explosiveness back, and also be more proactive in points and kind of find that form. He is someone who, and you rightly have said, is a little bit inconsistent at times because he has such a big game for the most part. So obviously when he is out of form, then it can look really bad. But mainly my point was, if you were to take Thiem and let's say he goes into Wimbledon, he's on top form, is the surface receptive to his game though? Because he's someone to me who hits quite heavy topspin. and isn't necessarily someone who's going to come and serve and volley, isn't necessarily a huge server as well. Could he have success on the grass, or is it more this is going to be the surface that he needs to work on the most to kind of get results?
Yeah, he faces the same issues that Tsitsipas does, but I think Thiem, to a larger extent, he doesn't take the ball quite as early as Stefanos because he has longer strokes. And the big issue is that when you strip Dominic Thiem of time, when you take that time away from him, he doesn't get his drive backhand off as well. Again, he has a pretty long, loopy mechanics with it. So you'll see him go to the slice more. He's working very hard on his slice. He's worked very hard on his volleys. But it's the same thing with Tsitsipas. He's not the best returner. He struggles with that shot on the grass. If you looked at, his loss to Sam Querrey, he's just he's not returning well enough to win a match against a big server on the slick grass on, I think that was day 1 or day 2 of Wimbledon a couple years back. But he's still, if he plays his best game, if he's mentally in it, he should still be able to go decently far, just because he's a good enough player to do that. But it's really, it's not a surface that benefits him at all because he's best when he has time. And the slow hard courts can be great for him. He should do, he won Indian Wells already. He won the US Open. So, it's not necessarily that Dominic Thiem is clay or bust. He's definitely not. But he definitely needs some time. So, the fastest surfaces on tour are not going to be best for him. No doubt about it.
Yeah, agreed. Is there anyone that I missed in terms of people to watch out for at Wimbledon in the men's draw that you think, you know what, I am going to ask you for your prediction and dark horse? I know it's relatively early doors, but I wanted to get your thoughts on it. But before we do, is there anyone that I missed that you think is worth mentioning?
Nobody wants to draw Berretini. I think that's definitely someone who you don't want to face with the way he's serving and hitting his forehand, and how comfortable he is on the grass. Hugo Humbert, I look for him to kind of have a resurgence after just a very disappointing start to this season. But if he finished off 2020 in such good form on the indoor hard courts, and I look for him to kind of reintroduce himself into the conversation with some young players that we should be watching. Alex de Minaur is another player who I think can also regain some form on grass, someone who is really a non-factor on the clay, who could kind of come back and have some results. And then FAA, as I said, let's see if he can continue.
Yeah, I agree. I think 100%. FAA, I'm really high on him actually. I just think he's a really big talent. Shapovalov, is he injured or is he going to be at Wimbledon?
Well, yeah, he beat Feli Lopez today actually, so he's in Queens. That's another guy. Again, return. How does he respond to when he's stripped away with time? And how compact are his strokes? And the answer is that he falls into the same category that Thiem and Tsitsipas fall into, with the one-hander and needing time and really benefiting from the extra half seconds that he can kind of load up his power. But if he serves well, and again, he's going to be a hard guy to break serve against. It's just how much is he going to be able to break serve with his return struggles is the question.
No, agreed. I think Feliciano Lopez replaced someone who I wanted to badly see at Wimbledon, but I don't know if he's going to make it. Nick Kyrgios, who obviously has got a bit of a neck problem, but his game is huge.
I didn't hear about that.
Yes, he's got a bit of a neck problem, so he pulled out of Queens, and Feliciano Lopez has actually replaced him, so that's why he's playing. But yeah, I think hopefully he's fit for Wimbledon. I think he wants to obviously be fit for that, but if he is, I think he's got a big game, and obviously is an issue for anyone. Obviously, he is a very, I think, divisive character on the tour, but I think he's very exciting to watch, and hopefully I feel like on grass he can do some big things on. I don't know what you think.
I think so. If he gets through the first couple matches, I mean, you'd have to think that there's some rust involved there. I've always thought that Kyrgios, while he's good enough and he's talented enough to go deep at a slam, I just don't know that his body can withstand it. And I think that will kind of continue to be the roadblock, even if he's focused, even if he's playing great tennis and all the stars are aligned. I just think by the semifinal, he's going to have an injury. And I know there's not a lot of players that you can kind of, you don't like to predict injury because it's seen as something as like fluky and, something that is impossible to predict. But I think for Kyrgios, he's shown enough times that his body isn't going to hold up, where it's just a matter of fitness. Like, this is hard. If I got to play Wimbledon right now and I was good enough to beat the opponents, I couldn't make it. I'd be injured. So I don't know about you. I don't know. I know you play yourself, Fazam, but for me, I couldn't make it. So this is not always, injury is not always fluke. Sometimes it's about fitness and how well you prepare your body.
Yeah, maybe 2 rounds, and then I'll be gone. I think probably, but I wouldn't. Well, obviously, I wouldn't make it through the first round. I think ability wise, but if I was good enough, maybe 2 rounds if I'm lucky. But yeah, we'll see. But yeah, Nick Kyrgios, I agree with you. And you know what? The most frustrating thing for me is the fact that I feel like if he had a proper coaching team, he could really go pretty far. Like, I could see him doing big things, but then maybe that's what makes him so good, is not having that and being able to play with this kind of freedom that gives you that excitement. Maybe he would be a bit kind of shackled with a management team, but you'd hope actually you would be able to find someone. But I don't know. He's someone who I kind of always think of and think, you know what, if it's just a little tweak there, can he do something? Or maybe it just, then he loses himself a little bit, his identity.
It's a rare combo, Rafa and Nick. I feel like they're a little bit fire and ice, don't always get along. So I think that's rare. I think the Federer fans more often will like Nick.
It's funny. Obviously, they had the issues with the underarm serve, but I think Rafa's forgiven him. He said it's fine. It's part of the game. So I think they've kissed and made up, probably. I think. In terms of then your favorite, I mean, Djokovic has to be the favorite going into it. And I mean, is he your favorite? I mean, how much of a favorite do you think he is, though, as well? Because I mean, is he as much of a favorite as, say, Rafa has been at the French? Because no, Rafa, obviously, Federer does not look fully fit. And then after that, you got these next gen stars who need to really step up. But apart from that, there's not really anyone else in there. Well, there's no one else in there who's won Wimbledon before, so it's all pretty new to them. So what do you think in terms of, Djokovic, surely a huge favorite?
Yeah, heavy for me. Heavy with the way his first serve has progressed here, with the way he's returning serve, the way he defends and moves on grass. I just think is really far beyond what anyone else can do. Some people disagreed with me. I called grass Djokovic's best surface. People said no, hard court. I think 2011 through 2016, sure, hard court. I think now it's, ever since he's come back, he hasn't lost at Wimbledon. He's 2 for 2 there. He beat, a great version of Roger Federer in 2019. He beat a really good version of Nadal in 2018. And I just expect very big things from Djokovic in this tournament. And then the U.S. Open, I think, is going to be his bigger challenge, where I think you're going to have Nadal ready to go. I think you're going to have the next gen guys and maybe even Dominic Thiem back to form. But Medvedev and Tsitsipas surface that they can succeed and play well on. The wear and tear of the year might begin to catch up with the members of the big three. It can get windy. It can get hot. It can get humid. It's going to be a huge challenge, and they're all going to come in if Novak wins Wimbledon with 20 slams. And I think that's going to be the much more difficult slam to win for Djokovic. Wimbledon, heavy favorite for me.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's funny because you look at it and you think, oh, he's won in 2019 and obviously won, in 2019 and 2018. But last year, obviously, one wasn't played because they had insurance, so they didn't need to play it. Nice little payout for Wimbledon. And going into 2021, he potentially could win 3 in a row. That's what it would be. And that's how impressive he's been on the grass. And it would be his 6th Wimbledon. So, I mean, look, he does look imperious on the grass. So I definitely agree with you. And very interesting that you said about the US Open. Obviously, he's looking at the Golden Slam, which is winning all 4 slams in the Olympics, because he hasn't won the Olympics yet as well. Now, it sounds crazy to say because obviously I think the only person to do it is Steffi Graf, who won it obviously quite a number of years ago in the 90s, if I'm not mistaken. But Novak, obviously no one's done it in the men's. And he would need to just be incredibly fit and look after himself and have absolutely no issues with injuries for the year. But if anyone's going to do it, obviously, it's probably going to be him at this point, potentially. But the US Open, I agree. The only issue I have as a Rafa fan is that I know Rafa hasn't beaten Djokovic on the hard court or Federer on a hard court in a number of years now. So that's a big, big issue. When he's won the US Open, it's been because he hasn't had to come up against those guys recently anyway. So let's see. But hopefully that rest helps him as a fan. But look, I just want to see good tennis. But I wouldn't be surprised if Djokovic wins Wimbledon. And then obviously, as you said, goes into the US Open a favourite, but less so because these guys, I know you alluded to it, like obviously a lot of the tournaments are hard courts. So that's why these guys are more well equipped on the hard courts, and the gap of the kind of talent and skill gaps definitely less. But on the grass, obviously, we missed a year, which doesn't help. So those guys' development on grass they missed a whole year of development. And 2, there's no master tournaments on grass. You've got Queens and you've got Halle, and that's pretty much it. And you were saying obviously Queens is way too small to have a Masters tournament there, and it's kind of more of an intimate tournament, Queens. So yeah, I mean, there's not a huge amount of emphasis. It's more, here we go, okay, Wimbledon, that's it, done, and then that's kind of your grass court season done, which is like the smallest part or portion of the calendar. So I definitely, like you, I know you said that you'd like to see more tournaments, and I'm of the same thinking. A quarter each. I mean, a hard court really is one surface, so you could say a third, but there's 2 slams, right? So fine, give it a quarter each maybe. But yeah, in terms of your dark horse though, who would you go for as your dark horse for the tournament?
What are the qualifications? How dark are we talking?
So they can't be in the top 10, let's say.
Okay. Let me. I don't want to miss anyone, so I'm gonna pull up the rankings here.
We're talking like a Boris Becker winning it on his debut.
Well, okay, so I love someone if they were ranked 11, I would have chosen. I love RBA, by the way, on the grass. I think he's very dangerous.
Really? Okay.
Yes. My dark horse here is I mean, my favorite real hipster dark horse might be Humbert. Again, de Minaur. Raonic just hasn't played enough. Gaffan's not in good form. Schwartzman doesn't serve big enough. Hurkacz has a good game for grass. Awful form since winning Miami. Stan, no. Khachanov, no. Opelka could make a run.
You know what? You're struggling so much. You're really scraping for the back. I'll give you RBA.
Okay.
Why RBA though? Tell me why. What's the reason behind it?
RBA loves to hit the ball when it's low bouncing. And also he struggles for power a little bit, but again, the way he hits the ball low and flat, and he gets that skidding action off the court, it helps him generate offense. And he's always very precise, hits very deep, puts it in good spots, also moves well on the grass. So he is always a candidate to go deep at Wimbledon, and some people will forget that fact because of the fact that he's Spanish, and some people might think he's a clay courter, and he's definitely not. And he's tough, and he gives you nothing free, nothing easy. Also a pretty good spot server. Again, it's not a big serve, but he hits his spots. It helps on grass. So I always think that he's a very tough out. And he's also a good matchup against Novak. So definitely Djokovic will be hoping that RBA is not in his quarter.
Yeah, definitely one to watch out for. I agree. I mean, he made the semis in 2019, if I'm not mistaken. So obviously yeah, I agree with you. He's definitely, I guess, a little bit of the forgotten man, like Rublev, a little bit. You need to remember, and people, I'm sure, watch everything. Hold on, yeah, Roberto Bautista Agut, yeah, he's a good little player on the grass, and actually watch out for him. So hopefully he manages to make a good run of it. And I'm just hoping we get a tournament where if Djokovic does win, fine, but let's have some tests at least. He won the French Open, a couple of 5-setters, beat Rafa. You know what? Well deserved, 100%. But let's not have it where he just completely obliterates everyone at Wimbledon, which would not be fantastic. Gill, thank you so much for being on, though. I really do appreciate it. Is there anything you want to touch upon before we finish up?
No, this has been super fun. And yeah, I mean, a great conversation. Hit on many topics, and congratulations on the growth of your channel and all your success. Still in the first year here, but you're on your way up for sure, no doubt.
Thank you, really appreciate it, guys. Of course, please go over to Gill Gross on YouTube as well. Subscribe to his channel. I'm pretty sure most people who watch this watch your channel. I've checked on the YouTube analytics, and one of your channel is definitely one that my subscribers go to. So I'm pretty sure they already have. But if you haven't, please do go over. Gill has a fantastic analysis on his channel, and also the 3 podcasts that he does as well with Amy Lundy and Joel Drucker as well, which is really cool. Really good analysis on, of course, the big 3, Nadal, Federer, and Djokovic. If you're a fan of any of those 3, go and subscribe to that as well. And I'm sure you're on all good podcast platforms as well, aren't you? I'm assuming.
Not the bad ones, only the good ones. But
exactly,
that's right.
Yeah, any of the bad ones won't find him there, so don't bother looking. Exactly. No, thank you so much, guys. I do really appreciate it. Massively enjoyed it, and hopefully we can catch up later in the year. I know you're a busy man, so maybe after Wimbledon at some point, or who knows, towards the US Open, we can have another catch up. But yeah, all the best, and thank you so much.
Absolutely, Fazan. No problem. Anytime. Thanks.